same easy peasy bread recipe 7 different ways to make it more interesting.
First you need 1 liter of bread flour. I just put my measuring jug straight into my mixing bowl and pour in the flour like that. This way I don't mess flour all over the counter. You'll find the complete recipe in the description. Next you need 2 teaspoons of salt. Then you need 2 tablespoons of yeast. Seeing as we make a lot of bread, we have a big bag, but you can use a yeast block or a small bag of yeast. Next you add 4 tablespoons of any seeds. I use sesame seeds because they are so small and barely noticeable. Now add 2 tablespoons of olive oil and 500 ml or 2 cups of lukewarm water. I put a cloth over my machine so that all the flour doesn't jump out when it starts. I wanted my bread to take on the form of my bread tin, so I added a little extra lukewarm water. Knead the bread for a few minutes till all the ingredients are well combined. Cover the bread with some cling film plastic and a dish towel and place in a warm place to rise for 30 minutes. After half an hour, open up the bread and it should have risen quite a bit. Fold the bread a few times to get all the air out and then put it in the container you want to bake it in. I used to have a silicone loaf tin, but it tore, and with me trying to simplify and declutter my kitchen, I decided not to buy a new one, but see what other containers could be used. I found this Pyrex glass container works perfectly. You could butter the container before putting the bread in, or use wax paper to prevent the bread from sticking to the sides and bottom. I use this reusable silicone sheet, which works really well. Spread some more seeds on the top. Cover it again with a sheet of cling film plastic and a kitchen towel and set aside in a warm place to rise for another half an hour. After half an hour it should have risen nicely. Take off the cling film and kitchen towel and put in a preheated oven at 180 degrees Celsius for 40 to 45 minutes. Take the bread out of the oven when it sounds hollow when tapped on the top. Cut into nice big slices. The next day I used the basic bread recipe to make buns. It is super easy. Instead of throwing the dough into a bread tin after it has risen, you put it onto a floured surface and break it into balls. Seeing as my kids are all different ages, they have different appetites, so I'm not so worried about making perfectly sized balls. Some are big and some are small. In this way, each person can choose a bun the exact size that they want to eat. Brush the buns with an egg wash or some melted butter. Then put them in a warm place to rise for half an hour before putting them in the oven to bake. We made bacon, lettuce, cheese and tomato burgers with the buns, and they were delicious. We are very lucky to have spinach growing in our garden, so I went to harvest some for this recipe. I just use a pair of scissors to cut up the spinach into small pieces. I find this much easier than using a knife. Break up or cut up the spinach into small pieces too. Then mix the spinach and feta. Spray the cake tins with some non-stick spray or spread some butter over them. After the bread dough has risen for half an hour, divide it into 12 balls. Press a ball flat, then put some of the spinach and feta mixture into the middle. Roll the circle up so that the spinach and feta mixture is completely covered. Put the spinach and feta rolls closely together in a cake tin. Press the leftover spinach and feta between the buns. Leave to rise for half an hour and then bake for half an hour. Enjoy with some butter. The next variety I made was an apple, raisin and cinnamon bun. Start by making the basic bread dough. While the bread is rising, cut up 6 apples into blocks. You can peel the apples, but I leave the skins on because I think it's healthier. Put the apples in a pot. Add a little bit of water and half a cup of raisins and cook them for about 10 minutes until they are soft. Once the apples are soft, leave them to cool down for a little while the dough continues to rise. Once the dough has finished rising, divide it in half. Flatten one half of the dough into a rectangle and sprinkle some cinnamon all over. Then cover it with half of the cooked apple and raisin mixture. Roll the rectangle up into a sausage. Cut the sausage up into pieces about 5 centimeters wide and then put it into a baking tin so that you can see the spirals. Pack them quite close together and leave them to rise for another half an hour before putting them in the oven to bake. Comfort food doesn't get any better than apple, raisin and cinnamon buns. I use fresh rosemary from the garden, but dried rosemary should work just as well. Mix the rosemary and the pitted and chopped olives together. Add the rosemary and the olives to the basic bread dough after it has risen once and mix. Break into round balls. I had a helper today. Flatten the balls out and cut slits around the edges. Fold over the straight parts to make a plaited bun. Leave to rise for another 30 minutes and bake for 30 minutes. Delicious! Make the basic bread dough as usual. After it has risen for 30 minutes, knead it and divide it into two. But one ball must be about double the size of the other ball. Cover the big ball of dough with a damp towel. Put the small ball of dough back into the mixer. Add 1 big tablespoon of cocoa to the small ball and mix until it is all brown. Knead the chocolate dough and divide it into 6 equal pieces. Roll them out into sausages. Then take the white bread dough and do the same. Now take one of the white bread dough sausages and press it flat with a roller. Place the chocolate bread dough sausage in the middle. Sprinkle with some chocolate bits. Roll it up. Cut the sausage to fit into your container. Pinch the ends closed. Put it into the bread tin. Repeat with all the other dough sausages and lay them on top of each other. Once you are done, cover with a damp cloth and leave to rise for half an hour. Brush with an egg wash or melted butter. Bake for 45 minutes. Just look how cool it looks on the inside. The next bread I made was a cheese and onion bread. First you chop up some onions into blocks. Fry them in a little oil until they are translucent. Add some garlic. After the bread dough has risen, break it into 4 balls. Flatten the first ball to fit into the bottom of your bread tin. Spread 1/3 of the cooked onion and garlic mixture over the bread dough. Sprinkle the grated cheese over the onion and garlic mixture. Then flatten the second ball to cover the fillings. Then repeat the onions and garlic and cheese. Do the same with the third ball of dough. Then spread out the onion and garlic, but leave some cheese for the top. Leave to rise for half an hour and then put it in the oven. After it has baked for half an hour, take it out of the oven and spread over the leftover cheese and then bake for a final 15 minutes. Delicious! Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. So now for the real deal.
If you've been watching up till here, you must probably realize that I'm not the greatest perfectionist when it comes to measuring all the ingredients and making sure that everything looks just perfect. But if I was a professional baker, this would be a great problem because people would never know what to expect with my bread. But seeing as I pride myself in being a good enough mom, this doesn't bother me at all. It means that we never get bored of our bread. Every day our bread is different. One day it's a small round little ball, the next day it's big and puffy and huge, and the next day it might be a little bit crumbly, and the day after that a bit doughy, seeing as I forgot to leave enough time to bake the bread before lunch. But this works out just great for our family. We never get bored of our bread, and we appreciate each loaf for what it is. Hope to see you again next week. Bye!